Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 9.11. And we're going to just continue this right here. Sort of waiting for you guys. I think maybe the lack of supplies is not getting us some other things, but I don't know. Okay, Grand Battle Plan has advanced. Very good. No, that's still, here. Let's do direct unit fire control. And heavy armored designs have advanced, maybe partially in that. I don't know if that last Panther thing had a heavy armored design one. Oh, and medium armor designs jumped the Shark 2, but so we need to end this. They're gonna really jump up a lot when we can research that again. That really gave us, let's see, advanced armor designs. Pull down. We'll let that continue, I guess. And we'll do small caliber gun right now. Oh, that's not, okay, we'll wait for that. We're gonna lock that down there. Before, okay, yeah, we've shifted a lot of production to supplies. I want to have a big boost in supplies. It's gonna cost 10,000 supplies too. Damn. So I want it. Now, let's see. Yep, we'll do that right now. I don't like that 1,000 in money there. Okay, we are taking these guys out. Okay, so we are looking at that province with a huge stack of enemy there. Okay, they're all one level, another coming right there, so that's good. So let's go with our panzer armor. What's the terrain there? Oh, desert actually. So yes, our DAC is going to do what it should. Another technology. What? Sloped armor increased to 1. Sloped armor 10. Doesn't fit these yet. Okay, well we'll let that go. We're going for good tanks early on. So we're pushing into there. Let's send these guys over to pick up some of those guys. Okay, they're here now. Well, oh, we're gonna risk it. We're gonna take the Marines too. Okay, they're going to come to here, at least for the first stop. It's looking like a June invasion of the Soviets. I was hoping for an early May, and I'm just not there yet. Ooh, somebody's like maybe wanting to join it. Ooh, Saudi Arabia, very good. Okay, submarine crew training, very, very good. We are training those guys up well. No, we're not pushing them ahead of time for naval stuff. Oh, commerce defense, yeah, great. We want to do that. We want to do that. And we have, oh, amphibious invasion tactics. And assault ship flotillas, okay. Amphibious invasion tactics, good. Assault ship flotillas, good. Deploy the 13th Flak Division in France, formed in France and assigned. Okay, lose 1 anti-aircraft gun in Paris. How many anti-aircraft guns do we have in Paris? That is a real question. 1. Okay, well, they don't seem to bomb occupied territories. The Allies don't, so we'll take that. And is that anti-aircraft gun now in Paris? Yes. And we will send that up to here, because I don't know that, well, just sort of on the way to the east, maybe, but don't know that we'll need it, but don't know that we won't need it. Get those Paris into combat, get those reservists into combat, or those guys in training, actually, really a bit more. Yeah. Okay, nice photo. And let's come over here to diplomacy to Saudi Arabia. Invite to faction, yes. Okay, good. So now we have another nation in our axis. Basically control of the Middle East. Either directly or indirectly, we've got, I don't know, Turkey. Yeah, it's sort of not, it had been until recently, it's not been unstable, part of the unstable Middle East, but I would sort of call it the Middle East too. So, but they're the only neutrals, and I think they, just if anybody's interested, I think they are programmed, Turkey is, to not join any faction. Meaning, if they start to get too close to, not that they, not if they, if you can actually get them to meet the conditions, I think they'll join. But they have a drift towards the Axis. But I think if it gets too strong, they will actively start trying to drift towards somebody else other than the Axis. So they'll try not to join any side. They're one of those that are programmed, like the Swiss are. Saudi Arabia, the reason it, even though it was, we had influenced them greatly into liking us, their values, or the value was not to join for quite some time. It's just because I think of proximity of the British, the colonies. So once we got rid of the proximity of any British nearby them, they were like, oh yeah, okay, we'll join. You know, okay, electro boat, advance. We'll stop that. So that's just basically, oh, maybe there's a new type of submarine we could build. I don't know. Yeah, we'll do guidance for our torpedoes. Scrap iron. Now this is just a very early TRE event. Just a basically based off the poster. It's scrap iron. Be a good citizen of the Reich and recycle your scrap iron is what it says there. My understanding. Again, I could be wrong. Gain some metal. Meant to just be sort of a thing of interest without any major consequence, you know, unbalancing of things. Okay, the Schwer, oh, gotta look at my event for the 500th, not the 501st. Hasn't been firing, and maybe there's a problem with it. Okay, not, I'll wait until after this episode. I want to go in and look at look at mine and see why it may or may not be firing. Okay. The Schwer 500 Schwer Panzer Abteilung 501 was formed in 10th of May 1942 in Erfurt, commanded by Major Hans Georg Lauder. Okay, yeah, sure, we want it. And I think that's on the map. And, well, since we have no organization, let's give it some organization. Or, I mean, give it some leadership. Because it's disrupted, and we will send them up here. You can see how these SA are being useful. Now those are just some Ritter SA. If you look at these units here, you see their max strength is normally 5 or 300 or something like that. So, or 500, I don't know, but not very strong. And they're just SA or militia cavalry, militia quality cavalry. So they're not very good, but they weren't very good. They shattered now. Okay, well, they're currently reinforcing. We might as well attach you to somebody. Just. And how long until you can attack? 25 hours. Better get going. Okay. Atlantic Wall Norwegian section. Okay, well. Okay. The 150. This is one of the reserve divisions. Things. This is one with the, I think, the most upgrade chain. On the 10th of May 1942, the 155th Division was transferred to Ludwigsburg near Stuttgart and became a motorized and received a Panzer Regiment. So, now I don't know what the Panzer Regiment was, and I don't know if it was a full-strength Panzer Regiment, but in 42 it gets this division that is not meant to go fight anywhere, gets a Panzer Division, and things get upgraded. So we remove all of that, and here we are. Now, oh, these guys are organized. The division is eventually used in combat, but only once it things break down on the west. It's meant to be a, because all the things, it's meant to be a training formation. Now, like I say, did it get a full complement of panzers? Maybe. And the reason maybe is because maybe they're Panzer IIs and early model Panzer IIIs or very early model Panzer IVs that have been upgraded a bit and whatnot. And so, you know, just as they're tanks to drive around and train with. And sure, you can shoot with them, but, you know, they're not set up to go. So this, again, is why you have some of these guys in the reserve to come up here to deal with this stuff. Okay. Schwer Panzer Abteilung 503. Yes, we'll take that. Manpower supplies. Okay, we'll just do this. Get into our money, but do that. Whatever. Okay, Hedgehog. Well, okay. Atlantic Wall Norwegian section. So this will Narvik region, any and all get a 2-level pillbox, 1-level anti-aircraft gun, beach defenses level 5, and fortress level 1 or more, or even more, or stupid amount more. And so you can see I've gone in here, reduced the money. It was originally like 8,000 money. I guess I did it down to 1%, not 10%, but whatever. But now I have 4,000 supplies that you have to build, and there is a check to have to make sure you have it in the bank when you start it, at least. Though we, of course, just spent it while this was up here. Medium defenses might be worth it because of this other scripted invasion that revolverheld is doing. I don't think the Black Ice D-Day will ever invade Norway. If you're playing against human opponents, well, you know, you might want heavier, but so this might be worthwhile. Might be. That I think, and I've sort of supply, you know, huge amount of supplies, and but I think those are stupid and heavy. Yeah, maybe not as stupid, but maybe not. We're just going to go with light defenses, so we'll get all of this. We'll get light defenses or something, I guess. Yeah, okay, we can see that here. See some more defenses down here. More anti-aircraft guns, I think. Here. Didn't get them there. Okay, well, got some more. Hedgehog defense advanced. Let's shift this over here and yeah, armor unit training. A bit more. And yes, we did go negative only because of the way things. Okay, flat guys, you go in. The USA guys go in as well. Oh, engine research. Great, finally. And we'll push ahead on that. These guys make it down here yet? Yeah, they're still alive. Oh, here they are. Out of supply. No one's sending you supplies? I mean, it moves slower. No, they're still moving fine. Good. Okay. That's a problem. I think. Okay, Sherplunk Doctrine Advanced. Very good. We'll stop that. How? I just want to. Because I sort of missed. Yeah, we're gonna stop the Blitzkrieg, I think. Let's come over here and get all of these 42s. Going. Assault guns advance. Good. Which means we get to upgrade that. Medium tank destroyers. Also grayed out. Good. I don't know if that'll cancel that out. I don't know if we want to. I'll think about that. But that leaves open another thing. I'll do the small caliber guns. We give them sure. No, thank you. Okay, this is the one that I thought. Deutsches Africa Corps reports the British have raided the Libyan coast. Expect regions to be clear. Okay, okay, not our battle, but needs a check for British control of places, revolver held. Gotta have at least some control of some ports here, and or at minimum Gibraltar, but I think that's a bit far for Gibraltar raiding. So this raid here is fine so long as something here, you know, from, because even if there's, you know, British forces still battling in Egypt, but if they don't have a control of a port, and there, or Malta and Gibraltar, because I don't think they get that far without that, so this is a problem. Italy's going to win this, I presume, but good thing they're there, but yeah, that ain't useful. Okay, General von Klinkerhoffen. Major General von Klinkerhoffen commands the province's garrison force. He is a very strict enforcer of German occupation. He is willing to have the French peasants shot when anything goes wrong. Okay. Few of you have been, or may have heard my rant that I think I put out by now, I'm not sure, about some of the uniforms. And this is sort of the thing is and it's not just generals with gold and others without. It varies, but you can see the cap differences in the uniform and whatnot. But they actually did fairly well with the quality of some of that stuff for a TV show. Okay, so we get von Klinkerhoffen here as part of hello. And this is working right. Okay, so he has his HQ there now. He is a he's skilled 1. Wow, I didn't know I had him skilled 1. Colonel von Strom is skilled 0. If I could have done skilled him, I did want to be 1 negative. I would have done so. I don't know if you can or can't do. And Herr Flick, which is also a bad SS Gestapo SD guy. Not that he really should be under von Klinkerhoffen, but so there's our I don't know if no, we're getting maybe Italians to help defend Boulogne. Any sort of invasion or uprising. Okay, I just don't want to disrupt their current command structure, so we're not adding a general. Same here. Okay, there we go. That should be a little better fought out there. We got the Panzer Troop and Schule and the airborne trainer students out there fighting. Yeah, they've already taken out the HQ. Oh, you've made it here. You need to join. And we'll attach you to somebody temporarily. And this is just what would have happened historically. Had the Allies just done a random invasion of somewhere up here, there was a lot of reserve type elements that were in Germany that would have responded and would have been, okay, SA, this is a, you know, fairly weak SA brigade. Yeah, they would have been fairly weak, but they would have been there. And anti-aircraft units, absolutely. Panzer School troops, absolutely. That's what would have been there, and they would have fought. And unless you were able to do a D-Day and sustain it, you know, have follow-on forces, it would have just been a disaster. And like I've said before, you can call it a disaster or not, depending on your perspective, but the Dieppe raid was meant to be a raid. Now, they had a lot more, I think, captured British soldiers or Canadians or whatever than they had anticipated, so it didn't go very well, but it was meant to be, you know, test our invasion technologies, test the defense technologies to see how the raid was going to go, and preferably, presumably, they thought it was going to go good, and then they were going to get out. Well, and that is a practical thing across the channel. Not so practical coming here with what would be air power too. Okay, the sinking of the Pietro del Llamo. 2 L's are Y in Spanish, if you didn't know. I know you Europeans probably all know that, but the Americans might not. Was an oil tanker built in 1912. She sailed for a number of companies and survived service in the First World War, only to be torpedoed and sunk by the German U-boat during the Second World War. While sailing under the Mexican flag off the coast of Florida, her sinking contributed to Mexico's decision to enter the war on the side of the Allies. So we're making more enemies. Now Mexico you might not consider it a consequential enemy. I think Brazil sent more more troops, combat troops to the war effort than Mexico did, but it's still, you don't need more enemies. Because particularly Mexico, you can go back to the Zimmerman telegram that Germany's trying to get Mexico to go to war with the U.S. And in the 1930s and 40s, I don't think that is a likely thing. But there is, okay, Mexico isn't, as a government, isn't necessarily a friend of the U.S. I've had lots of Mexican friends, and I mean Mexican friends, not Mexican-American. They're Mexicans living here. And I've had Mexican-American friends, and I think Mexicans are great people. But Mexico, the country, is not America's friends. And I don't even mean this in the recent terms. It's just, it's a long-term opponent, you know. Now, Texas broke off on their own, but encouraged a bit by the USA. California also broke off on its own with the popular support of the Californios, the people living out here, including the Spanish-speaking ones, because they lived up here in California and they did not like to be ruled from down here in Mexico City. And you may say, well, they're being ruled from Washington, D.C. across it. Yeah, well, you look at it, it's not that much further. And two, they were going to get their, and so they went independent. Well, I think all of like 6 days or something like that. But California was an independent republic, and they knew, everyone knew that that long-term survival was going to be joining the U.S. That was never really in doubt. But they knew that they were going to be a state, and they were going to have much more local control. And so, yeah, you know, Mexico isn't necessarily and again, this is not meant to be an attack on the Mexican people and any Mexican viewers. And it's not just, ooh, I want to protect viewership. No, I'm serious. Mexico as a government is not necessarily the friend of America. As a government, they have been a competitor of the U.S. And you know, so this goes back a long time. So Mexico is a great place, and I'm surprised that they didn't do a better job at it as a place of spies and sabotage against the U.S. They just didn't do that well. Didn't set it up pre-war well, didn't do it well. But the Mexican government isn't pro-German either, so that's another thing. It was sort of for a while. They did for a while have a lot of German trainers, but that's mostly pre-World War I. So they had lost a lot of their German influence. But, yeah. Yes, we'll take the undersea boat flotilla, and we'll upgrade or motorize the 233rd Reserve Division. Frankfurt on Oder. Okay, well, send you guys up here. So that's actually a fairly decent unit, but notice they have horse transport still. I don't know if I should change that, but cannon fodder of the SA. Colombia's quietly takes steps to align to us. Okay. Now they just may be doing that, not to actually want to join the Axis, but to keep from joining the Allies. Some of that is sort of programmed into some of these nations. Airborne unit training has advanced. Well, that's helpful. Airborne unit training. Okay, we're going to stop that. That's far enough in advance. And airborne assault tactics. I think that's over here. Yeah, that's good enough for now. Pilot heavy bomber training. Yeah, it'll help our heavy transports, and just so out of date. We'll do a little bit of that. Get them a little bit, just like one level better. Okay, we're not getting that anytime soon. Soviet Union, what do you want to do? We give them money for... No, we're building up our money reserves. Well, this pocket's being taken care of. Looks like the battalions may be doing okay here. And are we down here yet? We are down here yet. Onboard ship. Let's see if we can get in there before they can do anything about it. We've even previously built a radar base up here for our Vichy friends. Okay, desert unit training advance. Well, we're still fighting in the desert. Here, right now. You support the attack there. Well, you're supporting the attack. You fight it. Oh, you can't go to there. We'll go to here? No. Okay, so you go there. Good. Okay, so yeah, desert fighting is still very useful. So let's see your current level of training with desert unit. Okay, yeah, stop that for sure. Cancel that. Okay, yeah, we'll do combined arms communications. Oh, already messy. Okay. I want to have you head up to here. Get ready for some of this fighting in some of the Russian swamps. We'll see about catching your headquarters. The Marines. Well, okay, you guys head to here. You sort of slow, but get going. You also come to here. Yeah, I know I need to do much more to get ready for Barbarossa. Here we have our liners here. Well, you get on board boat. You get on board boats. Yeah, you might as well too. planning on pulling you back to there, actually, so I think we'll leave you guys there. You come down to... Actually, come down to here. Pick up the air units. Okay, elastic defense, very good. Yep, and that. What else do we have? Anti-personnel defenses for tanks. Okay, that's a one and done. Fire control systems for training has advanced. Targeting. Oh, American blueprints are stolen. Our spies have stolen plans that let us improve our abilities in fighter ground control to level 4, giving follow benefit. Okay, what were we at before? I don't know if we can easily know that. Fighter ground control. That's right. Fighter ground control. Okay, so we've just jumped up to that. Well, since we've done that, let's improve it more. Okay, establish the Reichsverringung Einsen to increase the management of steel as the single most important resource of the war effort. Albert Speer sought to increase the individual and private interests of the traditionally powerful steel enterprises. The NS government had always encouraged in the past the formation of cartels and preferred to steer those rather than intervening directly in the economic affairs. Due to the development of the war, the NS regime increasingly exerted control over the economy. In 1939, the German economy started to concentrate on the new economic organization of key industries to ensure the highest possibility supply with goods. The Reichsver for coals, textiles, chemical fibers, and cement were established. In 42, I think there is sort of an event covering that in TRE, but I'm not sure if it's that exact same thing or something, I don't know. In 42, the war situation provided Speer the moment to challenge the powerful steel barons and forge the same thing for Einsen. I guess it's steel or something. In German, okay. Yes, again, this is, as I'm, growing up as a kid, fascination with World War II movies and Germans and tanks and panzers and all that kind of stuff. And that's sort of what I focused on. And later on, I was sort of fascinated by how Hitler could come to power. A foreigner could come to power in a country. So his path to power fascinated me. I didn't necessarily look a lot at his ideology, general broad strokes, but what sort of more of what he was saying to the people. And, so if you look at a party program, or that doesn't necessarily tell you about who the Nazis were or what they were. That sort of tells you what they want you to think they are. And that type of thing. So I sort of bought into the whole idea that Nazis are just fascists that are also hyper-racist or anti-Semitic, or anti-Semitic fascists. They weren't. Now, there isn't a Nazi Bible. There are conflicting and competing ideological groups within the Nazi movement. Hitler actually wanted it that way, partially to appeal to different groups so that, you know, you can find your people, you know, who are supporting your, you know, supporting the workers or supporting the industrialists or supporting whatever. You can find your support mechanism within the National Socialist program. And so he wanted it conflictatory. And so, as I've come to understand, they weren't fascists. They were totalitarian in a different way. They weren't totalitarian as in a Stalinist totalitarian, in a completely centralized and central planning method that may sort of buck the totalitarian trend. But they were totalitarian in their sort of reach into all aspects of society. And so it's different. It's like I say, and I have stuff and I'm going to make events someday for something that are National Socialist gardening clubs with gardening fairs, you know, sort of, they have gardening fair kind of stuff, you know, who has the best roses in England, you know, regional stuff. And I presume it's similar sorts of types of things, but they're National Socialists. They have to have swastikas involved in them or something. There's a National Socialist Chefs Society of some sort that holds conventions about being, you know, chefs, commercial cooks that are male, basically. National Socialists. You just could, everything is political, if you will. Everything is National Socialized. Everything. Every aspect of life. Now, this isn't every aspect of life that tells you when to get up, what, you know, the government says you will work at plant X, and you will work there a certain amount of time, and then you go home and you will eat dinner here. No, it's not a Soviet-style command economy, but it is a cultural totalitarian system. And within the system, Hitler wants conflict. So it doesn't have this, you know, he wants conflict. He wants, because that's part of Hitler's ideology, is that conflict, you know, it comes off of you know, some people in modern day say cultural Marxism. No, it's more cultural Darwinism. And Hitler very much also via Nietzsche to some degree, and Nietzsche predicts a lot with what's coming in the 20th century, that he wants, you know, cultural Darwinism. Now, he believes National Socialism is the greatest thing on the planet and will of course win, but even within and the Germans, you know, the German Volksgemeinschaft, but he believes that's the best, but he doesn't want it to be stagnant. You know, it isn't like a, you know, Chinese looking back to Confucian or some sort of ideal. Well, that's when Confucian ideal government, that's what we want to try to achieve. And the further we go off from it, this is my understanding of Chinese general sort of thought, the further we go off from it, the more wrong things go. So, you know, try to maintain that, you know, and yes, I get this from comparative culture courses, so I may have some of that wrong, but that's sort of my understanding, is in China, they look to an idea of a golden age. It may not be golden in technology, it may not even be, you know, modern in some other aspects, but it's sort of golden in the idea of good governance and whatever else, and they sort of look back at that. No, the Nazis don't have, and Hitler and the upper level thinkers don't have, that, oh, we want to go back to being just like something in the past, or we've got it perfect right now. You know, this is the way it should be. This is our Bible, so to speak. No, Hitler wants conflict, but he doesn't within Germany, different dealing with outside of Germany, but within Germany, he doesn't want to have the Nazis conflicting with the Social Democrats. No, the Nazis were supposed to conflict with the Nazis and compete with the different organizations and different people within the organizations. And sure, he may protect certain alt comrades, but generally, if you don't perform well, he wants you to to lose power. And this is not a Stalinist thing. You don't, outside of the one purge and then the sort of the second, the July 20th plot purge, outside of sort of that, he doesn't want purges, people being arrested or shot or put in jail. No, it's just, you're fired, you're retired, you're promoted to a figurehead job, that has no power, or whatever, within the National Socialist Party. Some people are dismissed from the party entirely for corruption. There are some of those kinds of things. Some people get away with it because they are the old comrades of Hitler. So, all this is going on with National Socialism. And so they're power plays. But Hitler wants that. It's not just that Hitler can't get control of it. He wants that. It's in his ideology, and it's in his being. And it's sort of the rare thing that you have the Speer, who he will mostly back entirely. Again, mostly. Not, we've talked about. Sometimes he won't on certain issues. So that's a rare thing. But that is only because he's seeing the emergency of the war. And he backs Speer more and more as the war sort of, gets worse. Because he knows, he does see the figures that that Speer is succeeding, in that rifle production is up, tank production is up, aircraft production is up. Had he not been succeeding, Speer would have been fired. He wouldn't have been, unless he tried to fly to Britain like Hess did or something and failed. He would never have been arrested. He just would have been, Speer, you had a good run, you tried to do it, you're fired, go back to planning my next museum design or something like that, something that he knew he could do, or add a new wing onto the Berghof or whatever it might be, go back to being an architect and whatever. So because Speer got results and he was Hitler's buddy is why he was doing so well. But Nazism, or National Socialism at its heart, is not a fascistic economic system. It is not a gulag system that you see in the Soviet Union. Sure, you have, if you will, euthanasia programs in which you're killing off the sick and the elderly, that are not just you're old, but you're sort of old and infirm and you're mentally deficient, and you're killing off those people. And before the war really gets going, and even in the early days of the war, you don't have locking up the Jews on mass numbers. And a lot of the people early on that went to Dachau and places like that left Dachau. Yes, they were concentration camps. There were a bunch of concentration camps. They opened up, especially in the very early day, huge numbers of camps. But sometimes the camps had 20 or 30 people. And they get shut down 2 weeks later as the people get transferred to other camps. But as time goes on, many of the people, and I don't have good figures at all. I'm not saying there aren't. I just don't have them. But a lot of people leave the camps after a time. And they're sort of on the you're a bad guy list, and so you may get some very low level job doing, sweeping the streets somewhere or something like that. And if you don't behave, you'll go back to the camps. But these are sort of the select, the sort of communists or the social democrat union organizers, not the social democrat union members. Remember, 1933, May Day. The Socialist Party and the Nazis have a big joint May Day celebration together. We're all friends in Germans together now. Everyone's happy. May 2nd, they raid every socialist union headquarters, take their files, and shut them down. And arrest a bunch of the leaders. They never, on any mass scale, go after all of the socialist union, the membership. They have the files. They know who you are. Are you going to conform, or are you going to make trouble? If you don't make trouble, we're going to leave you be. Maybe you'll even decide to now join the National Socialists. That kind of thing. So they're not a Stalinist with the huge numbers of gulags sort of until the war is getting going and whatnot. So yes, there are camps, and we've examined the camps. But as a percent of the population, Stalin has many more people in the gulags before, the war starts than the Nazis ever do. So, they're not that type of totalitarian there, but and trust me, and as I hope you understand, I'm not saying that they're less bad. None of this is a defense or less bad. This is just a different type of bad than, say, the Soviets. That's what I'm talking about, and I'm not. This is not a defense, an excuse, an apologetica, be an apologist for them or any sort of thing when I sort of say that they're not the Soviets. No, that doesn't mean they're good. It just means they're not the Soviets. You can be a different type of bad, and so this sort of again shows that at its core, the Nazis aren't the totalitarian economic controllers of fascism. It's only the great stresses of the war that puts them to do so. And I think even Speer thinks long term, post-war, they want these guys back to being steel barons, doing what they want to do. Now, under the National Socialist regime, as opposed to a unfettered capitalist regime, the National Socialists want safety regulations in their steel plants. They want people to be paid well. They want a health care program. So they're doing all these other sorts of socialistic, if you will, in some cases. Some of them, health and safety isn't socialistic. It's just regulatory. Now, how regulatory should you be? You want, one person to die a day in a factory? No. But if you got a factory, should it be maybe, that's a dangerous process? Should it be a little dangerous? Yeah, maybe a little bit. That doesn't mean anybody should die in it. It's just you got to be trained well, and, but do you put, foam rubber on each corner of each, thing in the factory, so if you bump into it, you won't hurt yourself. It's that sort of the kind of thing I'm saying, how protected should workers be? Should they be dying? Absolutely not. Should they never get a scrape? Well, maybe they should get scrapes. It depends on the type of work you're doing. It's that kind of thing. Trust me, I'm not advocating, that there shouldn't be any of this stuff. And so that's a lot of what the National Socialists were bringing, because you're coming out of the 19th century, just before the National Socialists come into power. You're still in a transition period from 19th century, mid-19th century, somewhat pre-industrialization and early industrialization without, hey, you got a new factory here. And do you have child labor laws? Well, on the farm, it's a family farm. Children work with the parents. It's a small business in a shop, a cobbler's business. Children work with their parents. You don't have child labor laws. And it's sort of up to the parents. There's bad parents, there's good parents, but both bad and good parents can have their children working with them. Move into the factory age. It takes time for society to come up with the idea of child labor laws. I mean, to recognize, and then what should they be? I think in many cases now in the U.S., I don't know everywhere else, they're overly strong. And, it's I'm not advocating 5-year-olds being working in factories, but what if you're 15 years old? And, and it's summer vacation, because in most of the U.S. you have summers off in school, which was a farmer's thing, so that they could work on the farm. Nowadays it might be better for have them off in winter so they could work in a factory in winter. I don't know. But, so you have, children should be able to work if they want to. I'm not advocating that they be forced to. So there is a difference there. And so, how stringent should they be? And this is something for society to decide, not me. I may have a voice in it, a vote in America, if something like that, voting for pro or against a certain person who has a policy like that. But, it's something that needs to be decided. So you're coming out of the 19th century that is just developing these things, And so then you get the National Socialists who are not wanting to go too far, but wanting to have some of this stuff. And so they look like fascists, but they're not fascists. So yes, we'll take this. Okay, we need to look at some of, We'll do that, and that'll get us out of that. And here, let's shift more to production. Still doing lots and lots of supplies because we're building up our supplies again. After some big costs. And nope, we don't want fuel. Okay. Good, so we've got here, oh no, we probably won't be able to turn it over to our, just want to see, okay, got a little bit in the other division. Turn it back over to the Vichy, but, create a supply convoy. We want to come out of Rejekia or whatever, and down presumably to the bottom here, yes. Make sure we got supplies coming in. Okay. You support that. No, support the attack. Yeah. There we go. Okay, stir. I don't know how to pronounce that. Yes, we'll take the. I'll mention that. Do we have somebody sitting up here? We need to go. No. Probably should be sending out somebody. I'm moving, you out of the port. Give you a captain. No. Oh, come on. Click the wrong thing. There we go. Marine Commando West, but we'll move you over here, get you out of bombing. You did a few port strikes. They look like they damaged some of my oh, that's who I want. Damaged some of my shipping, but not. I don't think they sunk anything. Send you out. So I moved them in a little deeper. Okay, we're going to take this opportunity to end the episode here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking the videos. I really do appreciate that. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Love to see you around more often. And also, I love hearing from you. I learned a bunch from some of you guys. And as well as I enjoy talking with, obviously I'm talking with you now, but interacting with you, so please post questions, suggestions, comments, corrections. Love hearing from you. See you next time. For more Hearts of Iron.